and we're glad you're here with us for this episode of Tech and Tacos. And we have with us today Dr. Sara Netzley. She is a professor in the communication department. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yes, at Bradley University. And she will be talking with us about, to match the spooky season, conspiracy theories. Lots of interesting things being said out there. So let's try and make a little bit of sense out of them. And thanks for being here.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you all for coming. Some of you coming back. I see familiar faces from I almost said last semester. You can tell what I'm used to teaching. I actually teach an honors seminar on conspiracy theories. So at Bradley, we have an honors college where our students who are admitted into the honors college can take 1 credit hour classes every semester. And I've done conspiracy theories a couple of times. And I didn't start the first time I did it with the disclaimer that this is not here to teach you more conspiracy theories. It's not here to expose you to new ones you hadn't heard of. I had one student who thought that's what he was signing up for. And so at the end of the semester, he was just so disappointed. So just to state it, this is about where do conspiracy theories come from? What drives them? And what kind of person, and kind of person it's not as judgmental as I mean that to be. What are the traits that lead a person to seek out conspiracy theories, to embrace them, to share them? And so I'd like to run through some of those, and then we can talk a little bit at the end about conspiracy theories we've heard surrounding the election, or just in general conspiracy theories, and see if we can kind of figure out where are they coming from and who might they be appealing to, and so forth and so on. So with that, let's dive in. So this is me. I am a PhD in mass communication and journalism. I studied at SIU Carbondale, and I teach, as I said, the honor seminars on things like this, but also journalism, mass communication, and so forth and so on. All right, so I have a question for you. When we talk about conspiracy theories, when I say conspiracy theories, what comes to mind? Is it a person? Is it an idea? Is it something wacky you heard online? What is one thing that comes to mind when you hear conspiracy theory? Lies. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times conspiracy theories are not based in truth, accuracy, facts, anything like that. Yes, what else? Half-truths. That's a big one, right? Conspiracy theories often have just enough plausibility or just enough proof. I'm using proof rather lightly, that they have legs. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have a specific theory that comes to mind? When I say conspiracy theories, is there one that just jumps to the forefront? The moon landing. Yeah, the moon landing was faked. I believe that was Francis Ford Coppola, wasn't it? He was the director on that, I think. Yeah. What about people who believe in conspiracy theories? Do you have an idea of what that person looks like?
Unworldly, naive, doesn't do any research.
Wide-eyed, flailing arms. This is from a website called Animals Talking in All Caps, which is just a comedy website, but they take animal pictures and they put human expressions and emotions on them. And so I think sometimes that's what people think about, right? That conspiracy theorists will catch you on a street corner and will rant at you for 20 minutes about fluoride in the water, for example. And that is actually not what research shows to be true. We all believe in conspiracy theories. There is something out there. There is some conspiracy theory that all of us at one point or another have said, yeah, no, that sounds right. And it's not just, nobody used the word crazy. Thank you for that. Because it's not a great term to begin with. And it's not accurate, honestly, for people who find themselves embracing and talking about and sharing conspiracy theories like that. So this wide-eyed bug with his hands in the air is not actually the best version of that. What is the first conspiracy theory you remember hearing in your life? Anybody remember back in the archives of your mind, the first thing you realized, oh, that's not true at all? 9/11, jet fuel doesn't burn steel. Inside job. Yep. I feel like we're all going to date ourselves in terms of ages based on the earliest ones. For me, I feel like it was, anybody here my age, it was boy band members dating each other. And it was very shocking when I was, 12. Like, oh, I heard that. So that was very 80s child. And that was what we were passing around the schoolyards and things. Anybody else remember one from way back? killed JFK? That's one of the most predominant, prevailing, pervasive conspiracy theories. But I'm here to tell you, today's students don't know that one quite as much. When I talk about conspiracy theories with the 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds in my class, not so much. That's not one of the theories that they really stick with. So to start us, let's get some definitions. Conspiracy theory, there's a couple ways to look at it. One is, it is some kind of belief that involves powerful actors seeking money or power at the expense of an unsuspecting public. So it is a theory that says they are doing this to control us, to gain more prestige, more control of XYZ, whatever the case may be. A second type of definition is conspiracy theories are a belief that epistemological authorities are corrupt, untrustworthy, and engaged in active deception. Epistemological authorities is a mouthful. Anybody want to take a crack at what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that? Epistemology, I always have to take a run at that to pronounce it correctly. Yes.
It's to write about something. It's like fantasy writing.
It is about, kind of, it is how we know what we know. Epistemology is the study of learning. So epistolary is writing. Epistolary novels are told in letter form. So I think all of those come from the same root, I say, as someone who never took a bit of Latin. But it is all part about words and learning and sharing information. But epistemology is, how do we know what we know? And so conspiracy theories can be about the people in power, but they can also be about just the idea that the authorities who tell us what we know cannot be trusted, that they are involved in deception. And so this is, you cannot trust the government, you cannot trust science, you cannot trust the doctors, you cannot trust the media, you cannot trust all of these places that tell us the information that we use to navigate the world. So those are two broad definitions that we can keep in mind there. So the typical characteristics of conspiracy theories. There are, I will say, this is an emerging field. You have people who are starting to devote themselves to the study of conspiracy theories, but there is not a body of literature that has been built and refined over decades the way so much other research is out there. So some of the research is contradictory, some of it is in its infancy. So when I'm presenting you these ideas, I'm taking the best of the research that I found as I've been preparing this honor seminar and teaching it over the course of about a year and a half. And I've sort of combined all these ideas into things like typical characteristics. So consequential, universal, social, and emotional. And what I mean by all of those, consequential meaning, conspiracy theories can be harmless fun. Is anyone familiar with the mattress firm conspiracy theory? Nobody? Why are there so many mattress firms? Why are there so many mattress stores in towns? How many mattresses are people buying? Peoria itself has, I'm not actually spreading these. I don't actually believe these, but it is a conspiracy theory online that says they're clearly, laundering drug money because there's never anybody in the mattress stores. How many mattresses have you bought in your life? Why are there 5 in Peoria? That's one of the conspiracy theories that is sort of popular online. That is not consequential necessarily. It's funny, it's goofy, but it is not affecting public health. It is not affecting policies. It's not affecting how people behave or changing relationships. Anybody think of an example of a conspiracy theory that affected public health, government policy, how people live, work, interact with each other? COVID, yeah, that's the biggie, right? It is unfortunately easier to talk about conspiracy theories post-COVID, right? Because we had so much information about what is it, where did it come from, how do you avoid getting it, how can you keep yourself safe, how severe is it, all of these things. The information flow was, the epistemological authorities were under question. We had people who did not trust the science, the medicine, the leaders in government for a variety of reasons. So conspiracy theories often have some kind of consequences, often bad consequences. And they don't have to be global in scale. You can have conspiracy theories in town. I remember the I was friends with the son of the prominent dentist in my hometown, and the rumor was, gosh, these all go back to drugs, don't they? Good grief. I'm sorry, all my examples will not be about laundering drugs, but it was that he was doing so well because he was selling Novocaine out the back door or something like that. And so there was this whole, we need to investigate, and it was a dicey time for a little bit, just because money in a small town and suspicion and I think boredom, honestly, and probably a little bit of jealousy. So all those things rolled into one there. So you can have, yes.
Are all conspiracy theories incorrect?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think if they are correct, it's no longer a theory, right? It's a conspiracy fact. You can have conspiracies that are true. Absolutely. Watergate, that was a conspiracy theory that turned out to be a conspiracy fact, that there was a break-in that was coordinated. It went all the way up to the top, right? So yes, and that I think is what makes this such a hard discipline, such a hard thing sometimes to talk about or debunk, because ever so often they're proved to be true. And so if you think if you think you're onto something, even if the evidence isn't quite there, you think, but you know what? It was true in this case. It could be true again. So yeah, sometimes they are. It's just then they go from theory to the history books sometimes. No, it's a great question. So consequential can mean global, local, not always the case with all of conspiracy theories we see, but a lot of them are. And another reason for that is because of the universality of them. So we do not have a market on conspiracy theories in 2024. We don't have a market on conspiracy theories in America. They go back with all of human history. We have had historical scapegoats and rumors about groups of people or countries or religions or genders or what have you, all the way back to pre-recorded history, right? We've had witch hunts. We've had whole populations that were blamed for this or that. So even, how did the Chicago fire start? The Great Chicago Fire. Who was responsible for that?
Mrs. O'Leary's cow.
Mrs. O'Leary's cow. What if I told you that is actually not the case? It was not Mrs. O'Leary's cow. Mrs. O'Leary was a convenient scapegoat for a fire that started, and we didn't really know how, but she was a woman. She was fairly well off, so there was a little concern about a woman making her own way. She was Irish. We did not care for the Irish at that time. And so she was a convenient, also she was Catholic, which was a problem for some parts of Chicago at the time. So that is one of those things that gets started and it takes root and it doesn't really go away. And so conspiracy theory becomes part of the history book, part of what we know, and we don't really ask how we know it. But that is to say, we have not cornered the market on any of that. Conspiracy theories go hand in hand with mankind. They are also social. And by that I mean, they have their roots in our social organizations. There are some scholars who think conspiracy theories are social evolutionary products, that our forefathers and foremothers stayed alive because they didn't trust that other tribe. They stayed alive because they believed if the sky looked this color, they shouldn't go hunting in the morning and maybe they avoided a flash flood because they knew that color sky means rain. And so it could have filled a gully and gotten their hunters as they were doing that. So evolutionarily, distrust and stories and community building became a part of survival. And so genetically, which is what we're going to talk about next, how are we wired? Some of that just became passed down. I am not a biologist. This is not my area of expertise, but that is what the sociologists and the scholars say is part of it. But assuming that there is hostility or a threatening other group, it keeps you prepared and keeps you ready, and it will allow you to pass along your line, right? That is something that happened there. And then we have emotional. Negative emotions often drive the hunt for conspiracy theories. Negative emotions drive the hunt for answers. If we're scared, if we're angry, if we're upset, we want a reason for it. We want someone to blame. We want something to explain it. And so negativity is one of the things that something happens, it's them, it's whatever the case may be. There are also human traits that favor pattern recognition or agency detection. We want intentionality. We want things to make sense. We want somebody who is responsible. we don't want bad things to happen to good people. We want somebody to blame when bad things happen to good people. And so conspiracy theories sometimes come from this wish to point to somebody who's not us, who's not our group, and say, you caused this. Again, it's just how we humans are wired in a lot of ways. Pattern recognition is an interesting one. Patternicity is what they call it. Sometimes coincidences are just coincidences. Sometimes they're not. But we love seeing intention in coincidences. We love looking for patterns. I joked about Taylor Swift having my image on the big screen. Is anybody ever read up on Taylor Swift conspiracy theories? It is a deep dive. Clear your evening. Because the true fans will look at, well, she's going to announce her version of this album because she's going to do it because it's the 10th of the month and she was 10 when this happened and then she wore this outfit and it was this color. They look for patterns and trends. And you know what? Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they have cracked the code of how Taylor Swift is going to roll things out. She loves playing with this stuff, but she doesn't always. So sometimes patternicity pays off, conspiracy fact. And sometimes it's just what she was wearing, and it was the day of the week when she showed up with her hair the way it was. But truly, Taylor Swift conspiracy Reddit is, you will lose chunks of your life. You would not think. People are scholars, and I applaud them for that. So again, we all believe in something. There is something. As I was getting ready to teach this class the first time and going through these, I remember thinking, oh, here's an example. It was, oh, the US knew about the attack on Pearl Harbor. I've always kind of thought that might be true. And I realized that's just kind of something that I'd heard once and thought, oh, well, that makes sense. And I kind of hung on to it, did a little more research and found out, it's really not. Like, we do not want to think our US president would do that, right? So that is a silly thing. And there's a reason for why something like that is probably not true that I will get to as we go along. So I am speaking quickly. Always interrupt if you have questions. If there's anything I can ever answer, just flail and I will pause. So I use a lot of information from this book. It's by Joseph Usinski and Adam Enders. And it is a book on conspiracy theories. And he has gone through and looked at the research, done his own research, compiled what's out there. And he believes, based on the science that he has seen, based on the epistemological authorities he cited, that belief in conspiracy theories is a mix of our individual traits and then the experiences and exposures that we have. So who we are, how we interact with the world, and then the world that we live in, both of those things combine to give people more of a tendency toward or away from conspiracist thinking. So what I have, just a quick debunking, I mentioned this before, conspiracy theorists are not crazy. Usinski goes out of his way to say this is not about mental health the way we talk about it to dismiss, oh, she's great. Have you seen what she's posting on Facebook? Oh my gosh, she wasn't that crazy when I knew her. That is not what is happening here. That is not what Usinski's research finds. I mentioned that this is a newer discipline. Research is still emerging. The first time I taught this, I had a bunch of engineering students in my class. Let me tell you, trying to introduce sociological studies to engineers and saying sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and humans are complicated. Oh, they were so frustrated. And so I had to say, where are my social scientists? How are you doing? They were like, no, this makes sense. This tracks. So and that actually is a part of it too, that we're going to talk about as well. But the other thing I would say before we launch into this is beliefs do depend on a complex mix of factors. So if you recognize yourself in any of this, this is not to say that you are predestined to or you're being accused of anything. It's just these are the traits that can lend themselves under the right circumstances to this kind of thinking. In some circumstances, not always. The effects are mixed. The engineers are screaming right now. But the reason we study them, the reason that this is worth talking about, the reason I hope that you came out tonight is because they can cause harm. Because conspiracy theories can lead people to act or behave in certain ways, to treat other people in certain ways. And so an understanding of everything that goes into it, I think, can be useful for all of us. So Usinski says, I'm going to go back because I didn't highlight this the way I should have before we moved on, that they are a mix of traits and experiences and exposures. So let's talk first about traits. When we talk about traits, we're talking about psychological factors. And by that, I mean the cognitive personality traits that make us us. It is the way we interact with the world. It is the way our personalities express themselves. And so there are three different types of psychological factors that researchers into conspiracy theories look for. I've just given you a bunch of words. I spent weeks on this in my class. And so what I've done is just given you basically cliff notes. I've given you the highlights, and I'll talk through really quickly what these indicate. If you want to go deeper into any of them, let me know and I can back us up and we can talk about them a little bit more. But what Uzinski and Enders found as they were compiling all this research that's been done and doing their own research is that the cognitive psychological factors, cognitive is the mental process of acquiring knowledge and understanding. The way we absorb the world, the way we react to it, it's different for everybody. And so there are just a host of tests, psychological tests that you can take to see where do you fall on these scales. And researchers have perfected these. These scales have been around forever. The need for cognitive closure, the cheater detector, the intentionality bias, all of these things are scales that existed. And so what researchers did was looked at or gave these very well established personality tests, psychological tests to their subjects, and then asked conspiracy theory questions and saw were there any correlations, and they did find some. So in general, people who have a slight tendency toward conspiracist thinking have a high need for cognitive closure. That this is one that sounds pretty much like it is. They want certainty. They want black and white answers. It is kind of the engineering students versus the psychology students in my classes. That I'm trying to think of a good example. The end of Inception, the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, ends on an uncertain note. It is unresolved. There are some people who thought it was super cool to just end it in a way that it was open to interpretation, and there are other people who wanted to flip a table because they wanted an answer. They wanted the end. Do any of you know with a certainty that you have a high need for closure? You have a high need, you have to know. You have to have answers. Or are any of you like, nah, I'm good with ambiguity. I'm good with that. Sometimes you know right away, and other times, these are all spectrums. We can all be somewhere along there. But if you have a high need for cognitive closure, you're more likely to drift toward conspiracy theories. Again, doesn't mean you will. It just means that is a trait that gives you a tendency to under the right social cultural circumstances. Cheater detectors. This is a willingness to suspect others of cutting corners, of cheating. That is a psychological tendency. And there are tests for that. And so people who see cheating where it may or may not be are more likely sometimes to embrace conspiracy theories. Intentionality bias. This is working backward from the outcome to try to figure out what the motive was. So intentionality bias is there is a reason for this, and I'm going to go backwards and figure it out. Why did they decide to do this? Why did Taylor Swift sing this song on this day? I'm going to work backwards and figure out what message she was trying to send to us. That is intentionality bias. Some people do that, have a tendency toward that more than others. Other examples, I mentioned patternicity, the willingness or the desire to see meaning and motive and some kind of design and what's happening around us. And that can lead us to connect dots that maybe don't exist in other activities that can lead to conspiracist thinking. Crippled epistemologies. I'm using this word a lot tonight. And what that means is what we know comes from other sources rather than from within. If you think about it, we know things that happen outside of our physical area because of media, because of far-flung friends who report back. We can't know everything. We are only the radius that we can traverse in a given day. If our ways of knowing the world are not healthy and robust, that cripples the way we see the world, right? If our media systems, if we limit ourselves to just one outlet or just one topic. I teach students who just want to cover hockey for ESPN. That's all they want to do. I love that they have a direction. But I would say their epistemologies are kind of crippled sometimes because they just look at that. They just read and eat and sleep and breathe that. And they don't have a robust understanding of forget about politics or economics of other sports sometimes. And so that's not to say that what they have is bad, what the knowledge they have is bad. It's just not as complete as it should be. So if you don't know much, or you don't know what is missing about what you do know, that can make you respond to things. Well, this is why it happened, because of this, when there are actually a host of other factors that a more robust epistemology would introduce you to. Motivated reasoning is the attempt to avoid cognitive dissonance about pre-existing beliefs. I think I talked about this last month when we talked about polling, but this is this idea that you require more evidence to overturn your predisposed opinions. And so the more you fall for motivated reasoning, that I need so much evidence to get me to dislike this person I support, or vice versa, people who have a tendency to that might be a little more likely to embrace conspiracy theories. Confirmation bias is similar to motivated reasoning. It's seeking out agreeable information. People who have higher amounts of fact checking and critical analysis do not fall victim to, fall victim is, sometimes it can be negative, fall victim to conspiracy theories. So these are all cognitive, making sense of the world traits that are linked in some research to more conspiracy mindedness. That's cognition. The next type of trait that researchers have found can be related is psychological factors. Personality factors. We're talking about psychological personality factors. So this is patterns of thoughts and emotions. This is what makes us different. Extrovert, introvert, agreeable or grumpy. I'm making it very, very simple and basic, but that is kind of what we're talking about here. So what researchers have found is folks who have, if you've heard about different attachment styles, that is a psychology term, a psychiatry term, that if you had an insecure childhood, your attachment style might be anxious. And so people who, that's just one example. And again, I'm not a psychologist, so please don't quote me on that. But research has found that when you are assessed for attachment styles, avoidant or anxious attachment styles tend to gravitate to conspiracy theories a little bit more. This is how your childhood kind of affects how you react and interact with people as an adult. I think marriage counselors do a lot of this. If you have an avoidant attachment style and you have there's more than this, and of course I'm blanking on all of them, but that's what sometimes they work you through. Other examples, the need for uniqueness, that you want to be the person who knows. It's in your person. You want to be the one with the information first. Of course you'd find conspiracy theories. You know the secret. You're in on it. The rest of you don't know this. Oh my gosh, wait till you hear what I just heard. That is need for uniqueness. And so the more you have that, maybe the more you collect and share conspiracy theories. Narcissism, which is inflated sense of self. This becomes the dark triad, which is narcissism. Do I have this in my notes? Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy, the dark triad. Those are the personality traits that if all three are together, you might be a difficult person to be around. But the more you have that, the more conspiracy theory may fall into your life there. You can take some of these tests online. Oh, I should have actually included that link. I will send those to you. But there are online psychology tests that you can do to see where do you fall on the agreeability scale or the patternicity scale, etc. When you go to take the dark triad test, you get so many warnings. Do you really want to know? Do you really want to know? Do you want? And so I took it with two friends, and one of us had a pretty high number, and it wasn't me. And the other two were just like, oh, I think it's time for you to go home. So you can take them, but they do warn you. But basically, thinking that you are smarter, better, more worthy, of course, you're going to be the one who's in on the secret. So that's another personality type that can lend itself to conspiracy mindedness. The fact from fantasy options here, delusional thinking and magical thinking, strong beliefs that contradict facts, or thinking that things are connected through supernatural forces and you can see it all happen. If you have a tendency to that, yeah, you're probably going to look at conspiracy theories with not a lot of evidence and think 9/11 was an inside job, right? Because you have these kinds of things in your background. Manichean thinking is dichotomy. It's good or it's bad. It's black or white. Again, it's sort of that need for cognitive closure. It's I want this or that. There is no, all my pop culture references I feel like are just maybe not going to land. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones had characters who were awful but sometimes did good things, or good who did terrible things. So many shades of gray in Game of Thrones. The Lord of the Rings, you're good or you're bad. Manichean thinking. I feel like you two are the ones who are going to tell me if I got that right. Lord of the Rings is black and white, right? Like that's a kind of, nah, I'm simplifying it too much.
People say that a lot about it.
It's, and I think probably it's people who've seen the movies, but you know what? We're not talking about the Lord of the Rings here. The books have a lot more depth. Books always have more depth. Moving forward, we're in a library. Of course they do. That's a safe place to say that. Maybe The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a little more black or white, right? I think that's probably what we're talking about there. That's Manichean. You're good or you're bad, and that's that. And if you are more inclined to that, of course, they have it in for you. They're bad. I'm good. They're trying to sabotage me. That can lead to conspiracy thinking. Dogmatism, which is beliefs so strong that you cannot rationally discuss them. And so someone who digs in and is dogmatic about their approach is probably going to, under the right circumstances, be a little more conspiracy mindedness. Conspiracy theories, if you have somebody in your life who believes something that you know is not a true thing, if you've ever tried to reason with them or present data, they just dig in. And sometimes. And so that can be that dogmatic part of their personality in some circumstances coming out. Authoritarianism is similar, obedience to authority. This one is kind of interesting. Authoritarianism being linked to conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories distrust authority, right? A lot of times it's the government that they don't trust. And so this one is more tenuous because if you have a strong authoritarian nature, sometimes it is, well, if the government says so, then it's fine. But other times, maybe you're taking your orders or you're getting your information from a different strong authority figure who's saying, don't trust the government. And that is a whole other conspiracy. But that is a slightly weaker connection that you'll see in some of the research is authoritarianism. And my students really had a problem with this. They couldn't understand how you could believe authority and respect authority, but also have conspiracy theories. So I think it's just, who is the authority you're deferring to? We have a lot of authorities in our lives. And so that's what I think they weren't quite seeing. People who have belief in paranormal or supernatural ideation, if you believe in angels or demons or magic or anything like that, if you are more likely to believe in hauntings and poltergeists, I want to say you're like 30% more likely to believe in conspiracy theories if you believe in ghosts. There's some kind of research that shows a real link there that if you make the leap for supernatural, then you'll make the leap for JFK was an inside job. Other things here, we have anomie, which is discontent with society. This country has gone wrong and it is them, right? That can be one way of thinking that can lead you to look for answers for why is society not what I want it to be or what I expect it to be. If you have people who are just more argumentative, what better to fight about than conspiracy theories that the whole world wants to tell you you're wrong about? If you enjoy an argument, this might be a fun, thing you get to try. And then political violence. People who are prone to violence sometimes do respond to conspiracy theories as well. And then the final part of this trilogy of psychological factors is emotional. And here is where Uzinski and Enders say, this is not crazy. This is not, we are not using that term here. These are temporary psychological states that you can have periods of paranoia. You can have periods of boredom or powerlessness or anxiety, and that can lead you to look for answers or look for distraction or look for relief from conspiracy theories. And so he doesn't like to pathologize. He doesn't like to label people as disturbed, mentally ill. It's just that sometimes you will exhibit this depending on your mental state, and this also can be linked. So he's very careful to roll this research out. I love the point that he makes about paranoia. Paranoia often is they're out to get me. Conspiracy theories is they're out to get us. So true, pure paranoia, it doesn't really lend itself to conspiracy theories because most conspiracy theories are bigger than that. And so that's one of the points that he makes as well. Where I think it gets interesting is lack of control, the feeling of being controlled or being excluded. That gets us into the next batch of factors. I blew through that so fast. Everybody good there? That's so much psychological research that I just crammed into your faces just now. But those are all, sometimes they're linked, sometimes they're not. And a lot of times, whether you embrace conspiracy theories depends on this next part. What kind of world are you living in? World sounds so big, but what experiences have you had? What have you been exposed to? That's a big part of, do you have these personality tendencies, these psychological tendencies, and then will they attach to a conspiracy theory? And if you are lacking some of this, it might not. So it really depends. If you live at different times in history, this can have different outcomes for you. So these are your environment and your sociological factors. A big thing is group membership, in groups and out groups. Where are my Cubs fans? Cardinals fans? White Sox fans? If I tell you that I'm a Yankees fan, do I get just boo hissed out of the room? Listen, we are being punished with the World Series right now, so it's okay. I've been punished. It's fine. You don't have to punish me. In group and out group is real. Did you have a school that was your enemy when you were in high school or college, that you heard their names and you shook your fist to the heavens? In groups and out groups are real. Chillicothe versus Dunlap, or I am not a Tazewell County person, I'm a Peoria person. And that's, I mean, there's silly little, sometimes arbitrary things. It's where a mile marker falls or what have you. But the idea that our group membership makes us belong, it makes us feel accepted. We have organization in our lives, because I know that I am a Midwestern woman who was raised Lutheran. I know that I went to a college. I know that I did a Midwestern college. I didn't do East Coast, things like that. They help organize who you are and how you feel about yourself. And if somebody attacks your group, you will take it seriously. And so this is where a lot of conspiracy theories come from. You can have all of those psychological tendencies, but if your group is not, your group identity, whatever that is not threatened, if you don't feel as though you are getting any kind of heat from any side, you may never look for reasons that this is happening. But the example, let's see, I'm trying to think of examples here. I'm going back to sports again, but the other side cheated. I just saw, I'm so sorry, I'm going to talk about the World Series again. I don't mean to make it all about baseball, but somebody had said, oh, I saw something under Freddie Freeman's jersey. I think he had a microphone or something that allowed him to steal pitches. That's because his side is winning and my side is not. My side wants to look for cheating. I immediately reject. That's silly. Why would you? But there was a bump under his, and those Dodgers, you can't, they're from LA. So that's sort of how it happens, right? Group membership is powerful. And then group competition is also powerful. If I am not doing as well as I think I should be, I have not had the success, I have not had the opportunities, I feel like other people are getting breaks or benefits that I should be getting. How come they get to and I don't? In group versus out group, you start kind of seeing an enemy. And is there design behind that? Why them and not us? I had a friend when I was younger who swore that the powers that be chose when you were born who was going to be allowed to succeed and who wasn't. And he was not chosen to succeed, and I was, because I got to go to college and I had a job and he flunked out of college. It's because my name was on a list when I was born. And I was just like, oh, no, I don't think that's what happened. I think my parents just told me you're going to college and I didn't have a choice. So, but he was frustrated with his life. And so something about his personality plus his social circumstance drove him to that. I think he's a baseball card dealer now and he loves his life. So I hope he feels like he was on the list that gave you the job that makes you happy. It just takes a couple of years, right? So that is group membership. Another thing that can jumpstart conspiracy theories, social crises. COVID is a great example. I think we probably knew people who didn't really dabble with conspiracy theories, but then I'm going to jump past powerless and go to how and how often you see theories. You go into lockdown, the government is saying you have to do this. First, it's don't wear masks, and then it is wear masks, and then it's wash your groceries, and then it's don't wash your groceries. And there were so many conflicting pieces of advice, and you're home, and you're scared, and you're lonely, and you start going online and hear all these other people, and here is a video about how the government's lying to you, and here is a Facebook group that's talking about how the science shows this. The circumstance in which you're exposed to theories, the frequency with which you see them, the things happening in the world around you, fear, unrest, social upheaval. The kids are home. I've got to do school with them and do my job. I can't take this. And I have a personality trait or two that makes me a little more likely to do that. It is kind of the perfect storm for people to embrace theories that I don't know that a year before they really would have, because they didn't have the social crisis and they didn't have hot and cold running conspiracy theories all the time because everybody was locked in their apartments or in their homes. And then just in general, feeling powerless, feeling like I should, kind of like my buddy, I should be doing better. I should be, I did everything right and I'm still not succeeding. And whose fault is it? Who is to blame? And so that sometimes can happen. So again, I went through that very, very quickly. All of these combine to tell us, will you potentially fall for a conspiracy theory or embrace one or create one? And then the different types of backgrounds and predispositions also lend themselves to different types of conspiracy theories that people embrace or believe. Probably you can think about, and I promise I am pivoting to the politics side of things, political conspiracy theories that you don't believe in, you heard and immediately just rejected, or that you heard and thought, maybe there's something to that. That in part is based on our group membership, our beliefs, the people we're around, and then our personalities as well. But I am not going to believe in the same conspiracy theory as someone who doesn't have a similar background, whether that's politically or age or demographic, or it used to be that if there were sports conspiracy theories, I wouldn't care about them at all. But I've become. Did you know that the Blackhawks tanked their last season so they could get the first draft pick and have Connor Bedard? They tanked that season on purpose. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I would never have known about until I started talking to some students who really believe that. And I was just like, oh, actually, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's how sometimes there's just that little kernel, just a little bit of truth there that, they were doing it. And then they did get him. And so all of these combine. And this is to say that you could have some of these predispositions, you could have some of these social conditions, but you still can come out believing different things based on a lot of different variables. And I love this passage from the Uzinski and Ender's book that I cited on one of those earlier slides. In the United States, frequent targets of prominent conspiracy theories have included Jews, Catholics, Muslims, Mormons, Christians, atheists, women's group, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, extremists, the rich, the poor, government agencies, foreign governments, foreigners, and the media. I could continue, but you get the point. Conspiracy theories accuse many people of many things. Based on your background, your interests, your fears, your social upheaval, your personality traits, the level of dark triad in you, all of those things can affect who becomes the target for a conspiracy theory that may appeal to you. And so that's why we have so many, and there isn't quite as much agreement about all of them, and so forth and so on. So everyone is susceptible. Society and biology is not destiny, but there are times that it is more likely we'll see it in this scenario. What led to, I want to bring up Hitler, I'm sorry, but what led to the rise of Hitler and Nazism in Germany? What were the social conditions? Anybody who remembers their history?
They were in a depression.
They were in a depression. People were they were economically anxious, right? They were still rebuilding from World War II. I don't want to speak for Germans in the 1920s, but well, thank you. World War I. I could never be a time traveler because I'd go back in time and be like, World War I, and they would say, what now? World War what now? Yes, they were still trying to rebuild from World War I. It felt like maybe they didn't get treated fairly in the aftermath of that. And so there's a lot of social discontent, and why do they get to tell us what to do, or why is the economy not so good? And so who becomes the them that's causing all the problems? You have to have an enemy. And this is not a novel idea, right? This is how wars are fought. This is how people run for office. This is how schoolyard playgrounds work, right? You have a common, it's how sports teams work. So none of this is destiny, but it is human nature, and it can be better or worse depending on how we live and who we are. So quickly, checking yourself and checking others. How can you avoid conspiracy theories? How can you navigate them, look at them? Some things will help, although they're far from perfect, basically. I didn't actually black things out. This is just for the aesthetics, so thank you for letting me do that. Couple of examples I have. If you see a theory that makes you say, huh, I wonder if that's, one thing you want to look at is it falsifiable? What evidence could I show you to convince you that you're wrong? If I could produce a piece of evidence, what would make you say, oh my gosh, you're right? And one of the examples that I get out of textbooks is a unicorn. You cannot prove that unicorns exist because we could always say, well, he was just here, he's shy. You can't ever prove that they exist because I could always have some reason that you can't see him right now. He's invisible, but he exists. You can disprove that unicorns don't exist just by showing you a unicorn. That's the example they do here. I like the other example better. There are some folks who believed that Barack Obama was not born in the United States. He presented his birth certificate, and what was the reaction from some people? Falsified! There is no evidence I can show you to make you believe that Barack Obama was born in the United States. There is some type of conspiracy theory, a lot of them, frankly, that no amount of evidence is going to let a person say, you know what, you're right. You falsified this for me. This is false. And if there's no evidence, it's going to disprove it for the person who's sharing it. That is something that you might want to proceed with caution on if you're looking at new information, or if you're getting ready to argue with a person and there's no evidence that's going to change their mind. Is it worth having the argument? That's a whole other conversation that we'll have in a second. Other solution suggestions. Ask yourself common sense questions. Me saying, did the government know about Pearl Harbor before it happened? How many people would have had to be involved in staging 9/11, allowing Pearl Harbor to happen? How many people would have to be involved? How good are humans at keeping secrets? The bigger the conspiracy, the less likely it is that it's a conspiracy because you can't keep that. How did Batman get the Batcave built? That would take so many contractors. Like, that's just, there's no logic. There is just, it cannot have happened, right? So I just disproved Batman, clearly. That's what I just did there. But I joke about that, but the real world equivalent is, again, I'm giving you conspiracy theories that please don't fall for them. I am not trying to make supervillains here. The Denver airport, has anybody heard about? It has a wild lore and backstory, right? That people say it is part of a New World Order hub, and it has all these stories underground and a baggage handling thing that never worked. And I mean, I will say the blue horse statue is really, why would you put that horse statue? It's, Google it when you get home. It's horrifying.
Well, then they also had, come up with the idea that they had all that dirt that kept piling up out there after the airport was done.
Where's the dirt coming from? Where's the dirt coming from? So, I mean, these are the kinds of things. I'm just asking the questions, right? I'm just looking for a logical explanation. And so there are people who believe that the Denver airport is hiding some secret New World Order hub, secret blah, blah, blah. How many people in Denver would have to be silent about all this work that they did? But again, the murals are nuts in there. I mean, it really is. It is a fun thing. It is. And honestly, the murals are really upsetting. I mean, it really is like faceless soldiers bayoneting kids. It's real. Hi, welcome to my talk, everybody. But it is, this is why people talk about it, because sometimes it's entertaining. Sometimes it is defies explanation. Why would you do that? But the thought that you've been able to keep the nefarious purpose of the Denver airport a secret for all these years. I've flown in and out of there. I came through okay. I don't think I was replaced by a body double. I don't know, maybe. And then another thing to keep in mind, what variety of media is this person consuming? What variety of media are you consuming? There are a lot of media outlets out there. Some are bigger, smaller, better, more questionable. If you have someone who's just getting their information from one source and one source only, is it one of the good established sources? Is it a source you've never heard of? Does it end with dot? Why am I blanking on any weird dot whatever? Like .edu, that's an educational. .org, that's a nonprofit. .net, maybe. maybe, but sometimes things like that can be clues about how good is this epistemological authority. So understanding where are people getting their information is important too. And then just in general, focusing on education, critical thinking, science, testing hypotheses, what is falsifiable, what is not. Some scholars say making fun of people who believe silly things is not effective. Other scholars say it actually is effective. This is why I say it's an emerging area of research. And if I could be a scholar who was studying making fun of people to see how effective it is, interesting. One of the things that scholars have said is pre-bunking is important. Inoculation is another way to refer to that. Afterward, after a person is exposed to conspiracy theory, is too late. You have to get to them first with education or warning. People are going to try to tell you that this is the case. It's not the case, and here's why. You inoculate them like you do an injection, and that helps prepare them for, okay, this isn't true because. Now, the problem is, what if the conspiracy theorist says, anybody who tells you this isn't true is one of them. They're one of the lizard people controlling the government. That's a real one too. Lizard people controlling the government. There's a lot of websites for that. Again, please don't take this and become a lizard person truther. That's not what we're here to do. Debunking, one thing that some researchers say is you'll get the argument, don't dignify the lie. And a couple scholars are saying, oh, no, by all means, dignify it. Go and engage and say, how do you know? What is your source? What is your data? What is your information? What they've found, and this gets into fake news research as well and misinformation. If you work steadily one-on-one with a person who has been radicalized into the flat earth society, which happens, YouTube actually does that pretty easily, that you watch a video and another, and before you know it, the earth is flat. Individual attention and information and just picking apart carefully, piece by piece, the things that somebody believes can work, but that is intense individual work, and not everybody has the patience. Why would I do that for a stranger on the City of Peoria website arguing about why we're paving the streets, right? Like I don't have time for that. I have a mortgage. I cannot do this. So debunking, dignify the lie, present the information, great, but it is not a reasonable time. It is a time-intensive solution, and it often takes, it's almost like cult deprogramming is what some of the scholars say, is that it just takes that level. And then this is one that I've seen in more recent research. If people are feeling like they are not, that they're losing ground, they're losing power, they are not in a position where they want to be financially, in terms of romantic relationships, jobs, whatever the case may be, making people feel included, making people feel like they have accomplished, or they have a group, or they have a place in the world that isn't under attack, can help too. And that's a little kumbaya. I think that's a little hold hands and just make everybody feel accepted. And I don't mean to be unrealistic, but reaching out to people who are feeling alienated, or reaching out to people who are feeling like they're under attack from all these different groups, and folding them into society, whether that's job opportunities or education or scholarship or recreational activities, whatever it is that makes a person fit into a group or a community, that sometimes can make a difference too, to take away that enemy, that the world is going to hell, there's something wrong, make the world better for somebody. And that might include them in groups of people who are susceptible to evidence rather than conspiracy theories. And then the final one, repeat the facts. Just repeat the facts. The big example I've seen of this is the who won the election in 2020. That is a conspiracy theory that is still going on. We're going to get to that in a second. But the media and political leaders on both sides of the aisle, relatively speaking, didn't engage with that. They didn't let that go. They were pretty firm about, no, it was a fair election. There was not fraud. There were 60 plus lawsuits. They were all thrown out or settled in favor of this was a fair election. They just repeated it over and over, and they did not let it gain traction. And so it has, don't get me wrong, that's what the next slide is. But for the most part, it isn't like people who still say COVID and the vaccines were dangerous. You see a little bit more confusion about that because it didn't have quite the same facts that could be repeated, where with the big lie about 2020, repeat that fact that it got shut down pretty quickly. So that's the best advice I can give. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of your election and stuff that you're talking about, how's that compared to like what happened with Hitler? You know, the media kept telling us something over and over and over and over. Finally, people believed it in Germany. So the government's trying to do the same thing with the media, trying to tell us elections were never false.
Mm-hmm. I think I am not an expert on the German media system. You know, I don't know all of the funding patterns and all of the ways that it operated in terms of how readily accessible was a free flow of information there. I do think in the U.S. we have our media system is not perfect. The corporate funding, the influence of money in our media makes it not as good as it could be. But I don't think that there is not government control in that same way, saying you have to do it this way, or if you don't, it'll be uncomfortable for you. It is more about money than anything else. I also think that we had, after 2020, researchers, scholars, court cases, and so forth that really tackled the issue of, were ballots counted correctly? Was there voter fraud? Were people voting, illegally, incorrectly? And what they found over and over was that courts all over the country threw things out or ruled in favor of, elections were fine. That you had scholars who said, yeah, no, I'm a political scientist, I've been studying this forever, here's this. So you had a triangulation, you had different points of information that the media presented. So it wasn't just them saying the government says this, but what they're saying is this researcher and then this court here and this court there. And so the totality of that evidence, I think, is what brought that around. But like I said, I feel like I can't do a direct comparison with Nazi Germany because I truly, that's not something I've studied quite that much. Catch me next month. I can look up 1920s German media. So, and I feel bad because we have been here an hour and I'm now getting to conspiracy theories in the 2024 presidential election, which I think is maybe why some of you were here. But I wanted to give you some of the factors that go into why people embrace these theories or spread them. And as we look at some of the ones that are popular now or were popular over the summer or in the lead up to the campaign really getting underway, hopefully you can kind of see where some of those motivations and social cultural input can make a difference. And so I just Googled conspiracy theory election 2024, basically. And you'll find you have conspiracy theories about, I don't know why I'm starting on the left. We as Americans read from the right to the left. A coup, fake signatures, and deep fake are the latest conspiracy theories about 2024. The election conspiracy theories, that is something that I think is ramping up as we're a week away from election day. There is a lot of talk about what will the rhetoric about the votes be and the results, and how will that be passed along in the media. What I didn't talk about as much were the media systems that share information. News outlets often have gatekeepers and they have editors and fact checkers and things like that to try to triangulate. Social media does not have that. You occasionally have what's the community notes on Twitter. That is, I'm glad they're trying it. I'm glad they're doing something where they append this is actually not true. The situation is actually this. You'll see that on Facebook. If you've ever come across Facebook, something that says this is deemed to be low quality information, or this was debunked, or what have you, but you don't have the same guardrails there. And so you can get conspiracy theories that spread with a little more abandon than when it was just, Germany in the 1930s, when you really only had radio and TV, and that's what you had. You didn't have Snapchat to do that. The most recent one, this was yesterday, I want to say, Trump hints at a little secret with House Republicans. And so he said, well, we have a little secret, House Republicans and I, and the media and Democrats were like, what is your secret? What's your secret? And they kind of played a game of, well, we're not going to tell you. So that launched a wave of speculation, and that starts galloping around certain social media circles, just like falsehoods about Kamala Harris and what is her racial identity and things like that she can correct that as much as she wants, but in social media circles where you have motivated reasoning, where you want to believe that Trump staged his own assassination attempt, where you want to believe that the debate was rigged and the networks gave Harris the questions first, you will have social ideological in-group, out-groups, Democrats, Republicans. They are cheating. They are bad. They don't care about the country. They don't care about the country. And so that all can weigh into what you believe and what you don't. It's why you might be able to look up here and say, I believe this, but not that. And it's probably in part because of the candidate you support, the political background you come from, the media you consume. All of these things are going to be a part of it. So I didn't really prepare like a lecture on the theories because I think we're all consuming news, or we've stopped consuming news because we just are giving ourselves ulcers wherever we are at this point. I had to schedule my annual evaluation with my boss. I had election day or the day after, and I was like, let's go election day. I feel like there's a better chance of me being at work. I don't know. We'll see. So, but I think we kind of know them, but I just wanted you to think about the personality types, the exposure to theories, the number, how you're consuming them. Is it in mainstream media? Is it on alternative sources? Is it on social media? Is it pointing to they are the problem, they are causing this, they have bad intentions, they want to get power, keep power, they want to hurt you and your family? All of those things become sort of a part of the conversation when you start looking at that. So I'm happy to talk specifically about any of them. I do want to recommend, I like PolitiFact and factcheck.org as two fact-checking organizations that are transparent, that show their work, that give you, here are the sources that they have used to say this is true and this is not. You have a lot of fact checkers from a lot of media outlets. I just happen to like these two. And I have links all the way through here. All the conspiracy theory articles, I link to the stories. And it's politifact.com and factcheck.org, I believe is what it is. So I think those two are useful if you hear, well, what is happening with the economy? Is unemployment really up or down? What is happening with the crime rate? Is crime up? Is crime down? I'm hearing one thing from one candidate, one thing from another. And these organizations will present you with research, but also facts, data from the FBI, the Department of the Justice Bureau, things like that. So it's a good place to go for a variety of information. So there you go. Thank you. What can we talk about? What do you still have questions about? What's on your minds with conspiracy theories? What do you want me to go back over? Some people think that the Titanic was sunk on purpose as an insurance scam. And kids on TikTok are making videos about, here's the truth. It was a fake Titanic, and it was a sister ship that was towed out, and it was scuttled on purpose. And Titanic scholars are like, literally, no, we've studied this for a century. What are you talking about? So, yeah. I can come up with a number of wild ones. Researching this class was really fun to see the things that are out there, but also a little unsettling sometimes too. A little bit. For the final project in my honors seminar, I have my students either research a conspiracy theory that didn't get talked about much in class, or create their own, with the caveat that it is not to appear online, that this conspiracy theory will be shared with me and the class on paper. Because if this gets out, I will not be fired for starting a conspiracy theory in my class. Because can you picture it? Somebody builds a website full of conspiracy theories, and they do what we've just talked about. They appeal to these different personality types, or in-groups, out-groups. And no matter how much disclaimer you put on a web page saying this is not true, this is all for a class, somebody's going to say, that's what they want you to think. And so I had to say, not online, just this class. So we got presentations on why the construction sites on campus are always empty of workers. It's because ants are building it at night. They come up from underground, super ants. The number 2 pencil is dangerous. It's the number 3 pencil that you really want. And she just ran with it. Just really, the creativity of students it's impressive.
I think probably whatever your beliefs are, one thing that you should keep firmly in your mind is never say never.
Well, it kind of goes back to your question about conspiracy theories. Are they ever real? That you will find out after the fact that there was more to it, or there was more nuance, or there was a grain of truth to it. that
Dealing with the human animal, you know, a bear, you know, if you meet them in the woods, you know that their one thought is that they're hungry, they want to eat you. But if you meet a politician or someone in government, they would have to stand on their hands and turn water into wine for me to believe everything that they said.
yeah, considering the source of information also, and not, I don't mean media, but I mean, what is the motive of a person to say or share a belief? I think keeping that in mind, a politician is always running for re-election, right? I think it's why lame duck politicians sometimes are a little more honest or have a little less concern for that, because they don't have quite the same instinct to preserve their job. And so you do get, I'm trying to think if I have any examples of Joe Biden just being like, this is it for me, let's go, you know, but that's kind of that the lame duck presidency is a real thing. And so you'll see that. But no, I think it is important to be open-minded, but skeptical. I think both are important. Skepticism, if your mind is open, your whole brain can fall out, right? If you're just wide open to everything. So skepticism is important, but at the same time, don't be so skeptical that you run past actual evidence of wrongdoing or actual conspiracies, because they do exist. Absolutely, they do exist. Was the U.S. involved in overthrowing installing dictatorships in Latin America for Chiquita Banana? Yes, that's a. Oh, I just said that, like, that is a thing, right? I just realized that I just expressed that very confidently. But yes, CIA was involved in that. So, you know, that's something that might have sounded unhinged at the time, right? Because we would have labeled that. But as it turns out, no, that was actually going on. So open mind, right? Yeah. But common sense also. I think there are some things that I don't actually think there's a secret alien race of lizard people who wear skin suits and are embedded deeply in the government. And that is one that's online also. I feel like I can be 100% certain.
There are not a lot of snakes in government.
I mean, this is true. This is true. I think metaphor there, probably more than literal, and I'm afraid those people are taking it literally. What other questions or observations?
What about the Roswell?
Do you remember in like 2020, late 2020, I want to say one of the government agencies tweeted out like, yeah, we had some extraterrestrial contact. America was like, not now. We got groceries to wash. I cannot do this right now. That is a huge ongoing conspiracy theory. I think in part, we didn't really talk about the pop culture side of things, but what is one of the most popular conspiracy theories in Hollywood? It's aliens, right? It's the X-Files, it's Men in Black, it's all these things that make it seem fun, but also scary. But also, I mean, this is where be scientific and be smart about things. What are the odds in the universes that we are it? Talk about narcissism, right? So logically speaking, it makes sense. I'm a communication scholar. I'm not an astrophysicist. Please keep that in mind.
In the 50s, the Air Force ran a secret investigation, a compilation of facts called Operation Blue Book.
Mhm.
I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think that if there, I have in my own mind, I have no doubt that we are not the smartest dog in the patch, and that there's got to be somebody, some other alien race that has not contacted us because they look at us as an intergalactic Disneyland. We can't get along with our next door neighbors, so why would we accept something that had 3 eyes and 14 legs?
They're waiting for us to get warp technology. That's what it is. Once we have that, it's first contact time. So I watched too much Star Trek not to know that. Wow.
The United States even developed a manual for first contact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we don't believe it's not there, why would we have a manual for it?
That makes me want to see a whole list of all the manuals we have. What else are we prepared for? I remember when the zombie craze was real in the, what was that, mid-aughts. The government put out kind of joking how to prepare for the zombie invasion, but it was actually just emergency preparedness, how to have, you know, enough food and water and matches if you do lose power and things. But where'd they get that research? How'd they get it so fast? Again, that's how conspiracy theories sort of happen. You can kind of joke. Have you heard the birds aren't real conspiracy? Do you know the origin of that?
Yeah.
A kid made it up just to see if he could. And there's a it's one of the NPR longer form shows, and they interviewed him, and he was like, I didn't mean for people to take this seriously. Birds aren't real. They're battery operated. They sit on the power lines to recharge. That's they're drones. They're drones. That's the thing. He made it up from whole cloth. People believe it. People believe it. And so the creator of that has said, I talk to them and I try to tell them I made it up, but I start to feel bad for them. And I kind of want to be like, no, maybe they're not real. Maybe, you could be, because he knows that he made it up, but he hears the conviction and he realizes there's nothing you can say to prove. You can't falsify, birds aren't real, because we could say, well, this bird, I guess we have a biological version, but the drones are they're just flying too high for us to see them tonight. So yeah. Okay. All right. This was fun. Thank you for engaging. Again, this is my email. If you find great conspiracy theories, please share them with me. I always welcome to my email the next wild thing that you see, because people are creative. People are creative out there.
But don't repost them online.
But do not post them. Don't tag me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you all for coming out.